things, I think some of the big changes were online classes. And I have heard from so many of my peers that students are tired of online classes. I mean, constantly being on screen is a huge one, but also the fact that they're reaching out to profs and they're trying to get support from their peers. And a lot of students might be first years and they don't really have connections with peers. And so what's happening is they don't have someone to reach out to, and these profs are overloaded and they're not really responding to emails. And so students are going into assignments not knowing what to do, not really getting clarification or being able to talk to other people going through the same thing. And they're feeling very isolated, alone, and frustrated. And that's really making them struggle in their courses. And so that was a huge thing that I noticed this past year, as well as a lack of peer network. And so I mentioned, you know, students in classes definitely not having a way to connect. I mean, there are discussion boards, and I think a lot of us would probably be scared to reach out to a random stranger on a discussion board. But aside from that, when we're talking about events on campus and a bit about the university experience, a lack of connection there, because all these events are online. We have to go through Zoom meetings to be able to access these events. And again, we're already tired of being on our screen most of the day. And then again, trying to reach out and do these activities, or even if we're trying to do a workshop brought on by, you know, the Student Health and Wellness Center on our campus. And then again, lack of access to services. So similar to a bit of the struggle of trying to get students to come to these workshops or come to these events, because oftentimes students are very tired of being on their screen. Another thing is the lack of services. So right now, things are all on phone on my campus. I don't know if for some of you guys have had the ability to have Zoom meetings, but having that phone service for sure can be very detrimental to individuals who need to build that rapport and who need to build a rapport that's very trusting to be able to confide in a counselor. And so doing so over the phone and not having that in-person contact can definitely be a struggle for individuals. And so some of these things are definitely going to be impacting students, especially in terms of increasing the rate of burnout for them. And so before we move on into some of the things that maybe students could do, one of the things that I want to talk about is what a struggle is. And, you know, you could have burnout and you could also be struggling, or you could just be dealing with a struggle yourself. But some of the signs that we see are that it's intense. So we're seeing intense emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And that really means that your thoughts are very different from what you usually be feeling, or your behaviors are very intense from what you usually be behaving as. So that could be simply thoughts about feeling very hopeless, or it could be getting angrier more often. And then long lasting, we're talking about these symptoms happening for a period of 2 weeks or longer. So whether it's weeks or months or years, but these symptoms at least lasting over 2 weeks. And the result of that and those intense behaviors, thoughts, and feelings is that it's going to have a big impact on your life long term. So whether you're feeling so hopeless that you're missing class, or whether you're getting so angry that you lash out at school and maybe get suspended, these are having big impacts on your life. And so moving forward, we're discussing a bit on what we can do potentially to aid in this. We're talking about reaching out for peer support. That's a great one. Reaching out for support in general, but I talk about peer support because I think a lot of individuals are able to definitely understand what you're going through, and you're able to connect with them. And again, if you're able to do that through peer support apps, or if there's a peer support club on campus or any other networks. I know Kids Help Phone just recently launched, and I think it's still in development, but sort of a peer support chat. So something like that can definitely be beneficial for individuals. And then seeking support, when I'm referring to this, I'm talking about seeking support as in the university services. So that's something I think some students overlook. It's something I overlooked, and I didn't really feel comfortable accessing for a long period of time. So whether that's counseling services or academic counseling or advising, or it could simply be that there are, example, at my Student Central, individuals who look into the community and try to find resources that can help you. And that can be a variety of things. whether you're a single parent attending school and you need help, with childcare, something along those lines. So seeking support when you need it. And that can also simply be asking your professor for an extension. I know that was something that I was super concerned about doing and I didn't feel comfortable doing. And that is something I learned, that if there is something happening in my life, and we'll get into self-compassion, but being able to allow yourself to ask for those things and receive that support. And lastly, setting boundaries and prioritizing. So a big thing with burnout too is being so overwhelmed with what you're doing. So whether you're applying to med school and you're doing extracurriculars and you have this academic stressor in your life and all these things happening, you might have to set boundaries and say no to certain things. You might have to say no to helping your friend if you're not in the right place to do so, or it could be simply prioritizing what's more important. So whether that's putting school first instead of extracurriculars, or prioritizing a home life issue instead of other things, it's important to be able to do that and try to get yourself back on track when you feel very overwhelmed. And so I briefly just put self-care and self-compassion here, and we'll go in a bit more in detail about that in a slide or two. But self-care and self-compassion are definitely ways in which hopefully you will be able to help manage your burnout and be able to get through it a bit easier.